optimism of my Democratic friends is growing ahead of the midterms, but they're going to need everybody on board in order to buck historical trends and expand their congressional majorities in November. So how crucial could President Biden's ambitious student loan proposal be in maybe shoring that up? Well, let's bring in our political panel to discuss. Kimberly Atkins-Stohr is an MSNBC political analyst and a columnist for the Boston Globe. Reecie Colbert is the founder of Black Women Views Media. And Shermichael Singleton is a political consultant, Boston Globe contributor, and a host of Screen Share on Peacock. I love Shermichael's Peacock show. Okay, Kimberly, I want to start with you. How do you see this debt forgiveness changing the game in November, or does it, particularly when we talk about young voters?
I think that it absolutely could. I think leading up to this, Simone, there was some frustration among the voters who formed part of the coalition that helped President Biden win in 2020, that there wasn't enough action on many of the issues that they care about. I think there is traditionally a fear among Democrats in getting into issues that they see maybe wedge issues or things that aren't the, quote, traditional kitchen table issues like inflation. But what happened in 2020 is we saw a coalition of voters who were talking about things like student loan forgiveness, like other economic issues, like voting rights and other things. And we haven't seen much action on this. So this is a fulfillment of a promise he made. He said on the campaign trail that he would immediately relieve that $10,000 while working with Congress to do something more broadly. So it's a bit late, but it's essential that he did that in order to live up to that promise and let the voters know that he heard them and that that's crucial in making the case that he should and other Democrats should be reelected.
You know, we are also seeing a change in tone from the White House. And the White House recently used its Twitter account to highlight the PPP loan forgiveness for Republican members of Congress who slammed student debt relief. As you can see on your screen, these congressional members had hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars in PPP loans forgiven with no income caps or forgiveness ceilings. Now, Shermichael, I've been talking about when they go low, you need to go toe-to-toe. What is your take on taking on this hypocrisy?
I mean, look, it is what it is. Republicans are going to play politics here, and I get it. But I will say, I mean, my bigger question for the president, this appears to me to be a temporary fix. The bigger question is, what should the administration, Republicans and Democrats, this just isn't a Democratic issue, do to lower the cost of going to college or university in general? We know administrative cost is a big deal. We know college campuses are building amenities to attract students. The easy access of loans, that's another one of the reasons why colleges are like, well, the loans are there, so we're going to keep hiking up the prices. What do we do down the line so when your kids, my future kids, can go to an affordable institution regardless of whether or not we can afford it? That's the bigger question. So while I think it's going to provide some relief, I would have preferenced to have seen $50,000, particularly for black people. That would have really, really helped, really closed a wealth gap for younger African Americans and our white counterparts. And, I'm a conservative here, but I do care about closing that gap for most people in our community.
Black. Okay, let's be clear.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Now, Reecie, talk to me a little bit about the practical impact of this. What have you heard from the folks you've been talking to?
Well, first of all, I think that too much of the conversation is driven by the 7% of student loan debt borrowers who owe over $100,000. The reality is that the average is not the same as the majority. And the majority of student loan debt borrowers owe far less than $100,000. Actually, they owe less than $40,000 and $20,000. So this is going to have a massive impact. And so they may not be as loud in their advocacy, but they are just as impacted in a positive way. When we talk about the black wealth gap, because of the emphasis on Pell Grants, which 70-something% of black students are eligible for, they're going to see $20,000 relief. And this alone will move 500,000 black families from a negative net worth to a positive net worth. So this has real tangible impacts. It's a promise kept. And a lot of people, when they start to see those balances wiped out, are going to be very satisfied.
Well, it's not just the White House who is shifting their strategy as of late. Republicans are shifting their strategy, too. We've got Republican Arizona Senate candidate Blake Masters, okay? And he's now got a new abortion stance in one of his most recent ads. This is day after, frankly, of scrubbing his website of his previous position. Listen to this.
Look, I support a ban on very late term and partial birth abortion. And most Americans agree with that.
some of the scrubbed language from his campaign website included calling for, quote, a federal personhood law, ideally a constitutional amendment that recognizes that unborn babies are human beings that may not be killed. Kimberly, we have seen a similar backtrapping from other Republican candidates like Kari Lake, Dan Cox, for example, and others. I think it's normal for primary winners to adopt a broader message as they head to the general. But this is not that, because Blake Masters, in the tweet accompanying that ad, accused Mark Kelly of lying about his position on abortion when he clearly was not.
No, I mean, he's clearly still trying to politic, while at the same time, in that video, do you know what he described, Simone? He described the state of the law under Roe versus Wade. That's exactly what was allowed under Roe versus Wade. You see Republicans across the board realizing now that they are the dog who caught the car, and realizing that if you don't have a medical background, it is very difficult.
Kimberly, you're breaking up. I struggled to hear you, but Kimberly made the point that you saw all of these things being described in the ad. There's a juxtaposition of what's true, what's real, and what somebody is saying. Sharmichael, this also comes on the heels of Democrat Pat Ryan winning in that special election in New York. I'll be interviewing Pat Ryan tomorrow, and he emphasized his position on abortion and talking about freedom. Do you think that's going to spell trouble for your Republican friends?
I think so, Simone. I mean, look at Kansas. Well, granted, Kansas, the state, they have a Democratic governor. Donald Trump won the state of Kansas by 20 points. And what you saw was even Republicans in some of the most reddest districts by margins of around 30 to sometimes 44% also voted with Democrats to not have stricter voting laws. And so I think this idea of returning it to the states, Republicans thought that would be significant. But what it showed me is if you allow voters to actually vote on this, even Republican voters might surprise a lot of people. And I think Republicans are looking at that. They're looking at the data and they're realizing, holy smoke, maybe we've jumped the horse too fast on this. And I think, Simone, if you look at Republicans in November, we've talked about, oh, they're going to win, they're going to win. That may be true, but the question becomes, at least for me, is by what margin? And I don't think the margin is going to be as expansive as we thought it would have been 6-7 months ago.
Kimberly made this point at the top that there are a number of promises that the president made on the campaign trail that people have been looking to see kept. I don't think Democrats should get complacent. Reese, what are you hearing from folks? What do you think people need to be cautious about?
Well, first of all, they need to be cautious about the gaslighting of Republicans. They are running away from their record, and they can run, but they cannot hide, because we have screenshots, we have screen grabs, we have their interviews. And so they're going to be held to account for their records, whether they want to dodge debates like Herschel Walker is doing and a lot of these prominent Republicans are doing, or whether or not they're just going to be put on blast like the White House is doing their Republican friends on Twitter. It's going to be a decision day on November, and I think they're going to have big problems on their hands.
All right. Reese, Sharmichael, Kimberly, thank you very much.